It is my pleasure to now introduce Peter Abrahamsen, the emotional weightlifter. What does that mean? Well, Peter believes that true strength begins where stress ends, and he's drawing on years of experience supporting high-performing professionals and himself on his path, particularly lawyers, to transform mental and business pressures into balance, clarity, and confidence. And it is great to have you here, Peter, this morning to give us some insights into how to turn stress into strategy. And we're doing that under the theme of gifting ourselves to take away stress and turning it into real strategies. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Sigrid. Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on this at your end morning and at my end evening. But such are time zones, so that doesn't give me stress.
That is really good to know, Peter. Some people do stress over time and time zones. So, when you talk about stress with clients, do they actually, the first thing I'm really curious about is, do they actually use the word stress? I'm stressed. This is stressing me. Or do people use other terms for that? Is that something that comes to mind?
Yes to both, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Some people recognize that they are stressed and they're really worried about it. And other people come and say to me, I think I've got ADHD.
Right,
Right.
right.
Okay. I am not an ADHD specialist. That's not what I'm good at. And then just ask people, well, tell me about your life then. How long have you thought you have had ADHD? Because ADHD and stress can look very similar. The inability to focus, it jumping from one thing to the next and never completing anything. And very often, with the people I have worked with, and I can only base this on the people who I see, it is actually stress. And stress is something we need to understand, not something we need to worry about. And it's linked very much to what I talk about as the four main components of health.
Mm-hmm.
We've got physical health, we've got psychological health or mental health, we've got financial health, and we've got social health. I know there are people who want to add spiritual or religious health, but let's just stick with the four basic ones. We can always add stuff. And if one of those categories suffers, it has a knock-on effect on everything else. So it's about understanding where does the stress come from. And most, I would say there are two types of stress, good stress and bad stress, if you like. The good stress, we all know that. It's a deadline, it's getting everybody out of the house in the morning in the right direction, school, work, whatever. It's the adrenaline fueled stress that drives us towards something. And then there's the chronic stress, which is the bad thing. That's the one Dimitri also talked about. That's circulating the other stress hormone cortisol around the body. And when I ask people, well, no, tell me about how do you sleep? And it's usually not good. Well, how about your joints? Do your knees hurt or your elbows? Yeah. So cortisol attacks everything inside us, to not go into too many sort of technical and medical terms that I can probably get wrong very quickly. But it's not good for us. So we need to understand, where does it come from? And by and large, the chronic stress we get from what we do not get done. So think about your inbox. That's the one that gives you stress. Your outbox, your sent items, do not give you stress. It's dealt with, it's done. So when there's more on our plate than we can deal with, be it mentally or financially or any part of your life that is overwhelming you with decision making, something that needs dealing with, but you can't get to it all. That's where the chronic stress comes from. So that's why I'm saying it's something we need to understand so we can deal with the root causes and eliminate those one after the other.
Is there a particular definition that you verbalize at all on the word stress, Peter, or is just something that we use that word and we all really know what it means? Do you have a particular definition that you might use with clients or just for yourself? Stress is?
No, I don't speak about my definition of stress because every person's sensation and feeling of stress is their individual
Mm-hmm.
experience of stress. And that is what I need to work with, not what I think it means. So I always have to listen to how does this stressed life, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? Any definition I can work with as long as it makes sense to my clients.
I love that. That is a really great attribute that you have in you working with clients, Peter, from what I know about you and the work that you do. You are very much focused on the personalization, on the individual, what is going on for them. You are showing that by the type of questions you ask each client individually and then map out where they need to go by themselves from their own responses, from as much as I know about you. And I think that is really important that that you don't put something on another, which often is not well understood by people. So, taking stress into a strategy. Can you kind of give us a bit more detail on how you see that? What does that
Mhm.
mean, Peter? Just for
So,
explanation. Yeah.
so if we understand stress, it's kind of running but not getting anywhere in particular, almost like a hamster wheel. Whereas strategy is basically how do I get from this point to that point where I want to be?
Mm,
And if the point where you want to be is being less stressed or being calm or having more clarity in your life, whatever it is that you want, however you define it, then we need to not add things on top, but we need to put in a plan for how do we remove the things that get in the way of you being where you want to be. So a lot of the work I do is not about adding things on top of your life, like new techniques or new this or new that. And that goes for business as well. When I talk to businesses about their culture, their mental health, I do not turn up with mindfulness and yoga and breathing exercises. Those are wonderful techniques. And I'm not knocking those at all. That would be stupid of me. But what I usually find is that we need to get the basics right first. We need to remove the roadblocks. We need to remove the irritants. We need to get down to the really basic stuff, which is not very sexy to talk about. And that's why people go and buy the what I call shiny box syndrome. They go and find a new technique that can do something to the symptoms
mm,
instead of removing the reason why the symptoms are there. And that is the strategy. That's where that comes in. What can we get rid of that makes you feel so stressed?
mm. And I really like that. And I have heard you say that before that you are removing irritants. You particularly use that term and sort of removing things. That is visually very exciting because it means there's going to be less of something, particularly things we don't want in our lives. So yeah, go on, you're
we
fine to
we
respond.
we often talk about how can I add value,
Yes.
um, but adding value can be quite difficult to add into an already crowded market.
Mm.
So if you remove waste instead, there's more space for the value that's already there to express itself.
I That is fantastic how you just said that. So there is room to, to grow on some level or to you really make use of what you already have or what is
Mhm.
already there. And I think when we are thinking about the theme, what this particular expo is about, and that the presentation that we're working on here for this one, gifting, inspired gifting. I think when we remove things that are there and we don't need or want, or they are in the way of other things to grow, then the gift to ourselves could well be very much of removing the stress, the irritant of stress, and turning it into a strategy. If we're thinking now about moving forward to this new year, which isn't long before it comes about, Peter, are there particularly areas or things that you feel on a general basis? And I know you're not a generalist, you're very much into individualizing, personalizing with clients, but are there on a general level things that you could say when we're moving towards this new year? What should we look for to really make a difference for ourselves to remove stress, to work stress away? Is there anything that comes to mind or that you might already be working with clients on for the new year?
On a very general level, it won't be long before we get surprised by Christmas. It happens at the same time every year that it takes us by surprise. Okay.
Mm,
And we also attach a lot of value to the 1st of January. The 1st of January is just another day in the calendar, but we attach a lot of value as individuals to that new year, new beginning, new week. I'll do this on Monday. I'll do this on the 1st of January. From that point onwards, I don't really have a problem with that as long as you stick to your guns. And if you really want to change something, well, why not start today? So if you just leave it until January, then the air will have sort of gone out of the balloon, if you like, by the time you get there. But generally, um, if there's something that you have noticed throughout 2025 or the current year, never mind what number it has, that you really are fed up with, that you could really do without, that is a place to start. Just decide, I am going to change that one thing. No point in trying to change everything
mm.
because you will very often find that once you start changing one thing, other bits and pieces fall by the wayside because they were so closely linked to the one thing that bothers you the most. So the starting point is to look at yourself, look at your life, look at your business without judgment. Just look at it from a neutral standpoint. Um, Demetra said, slow down to speed up. I usually say, stand back and look closer. Sometimes you have to look in the opposite direction of where you would normally look. That's what I do a lot to find the answers. And then when there is this one thing that really is bothering you, that stone in your shoe that keeps irritating you when you walk, well, pick that one. And you can't do them all anyway, but pick one at a time. And that I think is the most generic thing I can offer. Don't try and fix everything at once. Pick one thing at a time.
Look, this is the thing. You are very, very much focused on the individual. And I think that is the huge success that you achieve with clients, that they really can remove irritants. And I actually love what you just said, because that really visualizes that removing irritants. The shoe that is in the stone that is in your shoe. I think that is such a valuable imagery there, that we can really understand. That means there's one stone in that shoe. Let's just take that one stone out
Mm.
for now and not change the shoes at the same time, and the socks perhaps as well, and whatever, when we get all
And
overwhelmed with it and we don't really we
and
don't.
and and that one stone in the shoe could be limiting beliefs. It could be the inner dialogue that keeps telling you, you don't know you're not worthy, no, you're not allowed to do this, you can't think that way. Wanting success for yourself is being big-headed. All the things that we are telling ourselves or have been told through childhood from parents, teachers, other people of authority that have formed who we are. Sometimes we need to let go of that. And so moving forward is very often about unlearning what we already know. And that can be a struggle, but it's also exciting at the same time.
It is exciting, and I think it is for us to recognize it. So when clients come to you, people come to you to want to be clients, do they, I think we talked about that, with the word stress, whether they use it or not, but they certainly recognize that something is not how it should be when they come. So do they see that they're actually helping themselves by coming to you, or is it often that people look at it from quite a different angle to helping themselves? I'm coming back to this idea of gifting themselves. So I'm using that
Yeah.
term. Do they think that they're helping themselves, or do they think more like, I've got to do something about it because of someone else or something else?
That is a really interesting question because it is a bit of both. And I
Mhm.
think it depends on your level of self-awareness. Those who come to me because they want to better themselves or have a better life, which is what a lot of people ask, which is why I've called my company Better Lives.
Yeah.
They see that there is an issue that if they remove that, they as a person or in their life, in the social life, for example, will have a better life. There are also those who come and have an issue that needs to be dealt with, and they do not make the connection that it is actually something that they invest in themselves. So I'm asked a lot, for example, about anger management. That's
Mm-hmm.
because other people are fed up with my client being angry and they want anger management. And I don't do anger management, for example. I don't really do stress management either. I go and look with the clients, where does the anger come from? And then we remove the reasons for the anger outbursts, and then the anger disappears. Because anger is a natural emotion. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that we should aim to not have. Of course, we're allowed to be angry, but it has to be within proportions. And then we have to figure out where does the anger come from. And it is typically because one or more of our values have been violated by something or somebody.
Mm.
So it is a mix of fixing a thing or improving my life.
Your life. Well, I like that. And I certainly know. And now, with what you've just shared here about better lives, that just makes so much sense. You are helping to create better lives. I want to come on this note around stress and strategy and looking at gifting and the coming of another year that is before us. I want to have a look at stress, people that come to you, that have come to you throughout this year already, and we've talked about AI, and that is such a big component. Do you find that clients really are stressed out, being predominantly in the area of working with lawyers, with professionals and law firms? And I mean, AI is something that's encroaching everywhere. Is there particularly a stress on the clients' level around that? Are they stressed about perhaps not being replaced? Most of them would probably not see that, but some other stresses around that, Peter, that you have experienced with clients.
I think in terms of AI, I wouldn't say it's stress. I think it's more anxiety and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, if you listen to your body, anxiety would typically be at the chest, top of your body, and you would feel the stress typically further down in the abdominal area. So if you think you're stressed and it sits up here, it's probably anxiety. There's more anxiety about HR than HR. How about AI? More anxiety about AI than I think there is stress. Anxiety, am I going to lose my job? How I used AI, is that going to backfire on me? Is it actually appropriate for me? So those are the kind of discussions and conversations and considerations that are floating about at the moment. And certainly in my world, in coaching and therapy, there are AI tools out there who do a job. But AI should not be anybody's companion in life.
No.
AI is a machine, it's artificial. And I do have clients who turn up with comments as, ChatGPT said such and such. And now my job is beginning to either agree with or disagree with ChatGPT and give my reasons for that. And there isn't an AI thingy out there who understands a client the way I do when I work with them.
Mm.
And an example of that is a client who said, well, my girlfriend put this comment I made on WhatsApp into ChatGPT, and it came back and told her that I am controlling. Now, this man is one of the least controlling people I've come across. But ChatGPT took what this girlfriend had put into ChatGPT and it spat out something that probably sounded real, right? But it had no context.
Mm.
And so using AI in therapy and coaching is embryonic. There's a lot of charlatans and snake oil sellers out there having done their apps already with greater or lesser success. And I think it will be a while before we see which are sustainable and which will fall by the wayside. But I don't think in my world, I don't see AI stress. I see AI anxiety and fear.
Mm. I look, that is really interesting to me, Peter. I'm a person who likes to research and find out details, and it would never enter my thinking to ask ChatGPT on something personal or anything actually. I'd rather ask a person like yourselves of expertise on that area. So it's very interesting that people should do that. I really don't understand what they expect to get back from it. It is
Um,
a machine.
I think we live in a world where we're so used to being online and getting instant feedback,
Mm.
and now we can just ask an AI thing, whether it's ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever they're all called, um, as if it's open 24 hours. It's non-judgmental. It's there. It'll give you an answer. And I know of my clients who have used that at 2 in the morning when they were panicking about something. They asked ChatGPT because they thought it wasn't reasonable to ring me. And you we still have these phone lines, these crisis phone lines, and I hear a lot of negativity about those phone lines from my clients. Oh, they didn't help, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they were just talking to me for a bit. But isn't that somehow better than asking a machine? But it again, it's an individual preference. I can't dictate what people should and should not do. I can only warn about the advice or the guidance that AI gives because it doesn't know the context. And it also depends how you inquire, it depends what you give AI to work with. That all depends on what comes back to you.
Mm.
So it's there. It's not to be scared of. It's to be understood, and then figure out how can I use this tool properly.
And I think that really cuts to it, the words and what meaning we attach to it. In different cultures and different areas, even in the same country, people attach different meanings, and therefore a machine that's been learning how to respond
Mm,
cannot find those nuances at all. And like you said, depending on what the question is. So we leave the AI on the sidelines, certainly for clients that you work with and that you yourself are making use of. And let's come to the conclusion for this session with you, Peter, on turning stress into strategy. It is really from what I have really taken away from this, what you've shared is to removing irritants. And I just come back to this because I really love it. It's a visual for me. When you've got a stone in your shoe, you've got to remove that because it is irritating. And that is really work that you do, whatever there is in people's lives, whether they are lawyers, law firms, or individuals like me, not attached to the law. You are there to help remove irritants, to look towards and help people towards achieving a better life. Peter, thank you for being so frank in this session with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.